Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SurgeCast. There's lots of mixed feelings going on right now. We're starting this with it's the end of the season for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I think everyone's just still processing that. How are you guys feeling, Zach? Paid intern.
Let the paid intern go first on this one.
It sucks because we will get into the series, but the fact that if the Canes would have played how they did more in games 4 and 5, our predictions could have looked a lot better. But for them to disappear those first 3 games, it was tough to watch. So mixed emotions knowing that if they played better, they could have done more. So that's kind of where I'm at. But also, hey, we won an ECF game. It's a small wins. That's growth from there. Going to get a bunch of free agents this offseason. So the pressure will really be on next season. But we're checking small boxes as we go.
Where to begin on that one? I mean, it stinks. It really does, for the fact that now it's all of a sudden the season's over, and now it's like I know the next focus is the draft and free agency and stuff like that, but it even ends like how long does it take for you to kind of like process all the stuff, like going on from there? And just, now it's like, okay, now I got to figure out what I'm going to do with some of my nights now, because there's just no Canes hockey, and it's bittersweet. I mean, at least the guys fought to the very end. They didn't roll over like other teams in the playoffs, so gotta give them a lot of props for that. It's just at least they brought it back for one more, and at least the fans got to see Nikishin in a playoff game for the first time. So there's some silver linings here and there, and some of the big guys stepped up. A lot of people, surprised throughout the playoffs. I don't talk about it, but yeah, it's bittersweet. A lot of mixed emotions. Definitely still a lot to process, that's for sure, because we're like, as we're recording, it's barely not even close to 24 hours yet since the game ended. How about you, Kat? How are you feeling about all of it?
I will say that I am feeling, after games 4 and 5, I'm feeling better than I was to start the series. At the thought of potentially getting another sweep in 4 games, it was a different feeling than how it was the last time we played the Panthers, where again they were like 1-goal games that were fought for like multiple overtimes. So that was a Canes team where you just didn't get the bounces, you just got out goalied, you just fell short just barely, but not for like lack of trying. This one, the first 3 games, the Canes were like unrecognizable. I don't know if a little bit like that break was a little bit too much, and they were like very confident because they finished the first round and the second round so easily. But it was like they weren't prepared, but they weren't prepared for a team that has their number, that gets in the Canes' heads. Like, the Carolina Hurricanes have had different beasts they've had to fight for multiple seasons now. So for a while it was the Bruins, and then it turned into the Rangers. And then the new beast is now the Florida Panthers. And I'll take it, as this is our new like David and Goliath kind of thing, is because they're the reigning champions. Like, if there's one beast that you have to get through, it's them. And looking back at Tampa, I mean, Tampa did it 2 years in a row. No one could dethrone them. So I'm glad I recognized the team that finished that 5th game. I'm glad that was the team that I had been cheering for all season, the team that I thought was going to be going into this series. Why my prediction was so much higher and a different result. But yeah, well, we'll go ahead and start. And I mean, I feel like we're in a really I feel like this is like a funeral episode. But it's not. There's lots of highs we can talk about. But we do have to start with giving just a recap of this series. So starting with the first game, honestly, it wasn't a terrible start for the Canes. Like to start the series, they came out like as if they had done their homework on Florida. They came out heavy hitting. They came out high pressure, but almost to the point where I had said multiple times, they were actually getting away from Canes hockey. They were trying to be overly physical. They weren't keeping their puck management. Like their pressure was more on the player than it was on the puck. And honestly, it looked like Florida was also a little like shocked that another team was like pushing that back on them. And it could be a strategy, except if it takes you away from the actual strategy of Canes hockey, then one mistake is going to kind of, if you're going to get sent to the box or you're going to play a man rather than the puck and they get the puck into your zone, then you're going to pay for it. And that's kind of what happened with the first game with the Panthers. Like I said, hey, you guys, we asked at the beginning who was like key players to watch in this matchup. Mine struck first. Verhaeghe will maintain his playoff streak status of just being that playoff guy for the Panthers. And unfortunately it got back to its normal form, but our penalty kill just wasn't what it was supposed to be that first game, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just even overall, I think the first 3 games is kind of just, you look at it's just because we talk about system versus system. It broke down early, and unfortunately, it just turned into a thing where it was Florida played the Hurricanes system better than Carolina did, and I know we'll talk about games 4 and 5, but Brind'Amour even said after game 5, it's just the Panthers set the new standard, and they took it one extra level in this playoff. Like, forecheck, dump, check them really hard, go back, cycle it through, progress, cycle in the offensive zone, forecheck them like crazy, and that's what it is. And Florida brought the physicality too, and they are the new standard. And that's pretty much what it is. And that's what you saw in the first 3 games is they imposed the role on the Canes. It's just one of those things where even if they had no rest, I think Carolina is just, and Rod said it too, it's like they played a physical series against Washington, but Florida had that other level of that physicality because they're now the 3-time, back-to-back Eastern Conference champs, and they've done it for a reason. And we'll talk about games 4 and 5 in a little bit, but 1 and 3. Even if the Canes play their system, Florida, gotta give them credit, man. They just were on another level in those first 3 games, and Carolina just wasn't ready for it.
It's amazing how unbothered Florida gets because in game 1, whether it was right before the Verhaeghe or Ekblad goal, I can't remember, but when Ghost almost gets that goal or Aho, and then immediately they come down the ice and score the goal, or even heading down to game 5, like Jarvie ties a game. I've never heard Lenovo that loud in my life, and within minutes they retake the lead. Like that is such a composed team. Like obviously they've been to the finals now 3 times. Like team that's been there, done that. They don't get rattled. That it's an impressive job, and it's impressive just the team that's assembled in South Beach, which, to sidetrack for a second, though, they do not deserve it. Their fans do not deserve it. They got LeBron in his prime, and now they get 3 straight trips to the finals. That is ridiculous. Unrelated. That is so ridiculous. Miami fans do not deserve that. That is my sidetrack. But going back to hockey, they're a great team. They're a great team.
It's interesting that some of the key points that we talked about going into this series kind of backfired very quickly. So we talked about maybe the Canes got a little bit more physicality under them going against Washington this time, and they started out with it, but the physicality actually, I think, hurt them a little bit. You talk about, okay, well, we've got rest on our side. Well, that didn't matter. The Panthers were riled up from their comeback, like winning the series against Toronto. You talk about, we have so much more depth to this team, and immediately our defense, that goes out the window. There were so many factors that were positive for the Canes, and the Panthers just playing their game kind of destroyed all that. I also think it's a little bit of a mental hump for some of these guys. I think like I said, I think the Panthers are the team now it's the team to beat. And listen, the way we played the first 3 games is kind of a little inexcusable. Game 3 was a little bit more on it, but it's a little inexcusable because that's not clearly looking at 4 and 5. That's the Carolina team that was supposed to be in the ECF, the team that's supposed to be challenging to the Panthers. And you give the Panthers all the credit. They're a high caliber team. They're used to this pressure. They've got all of these pieces they've pulled in. They've learned to use the cap space at different times of the year. But you have to remember too, as much as everyone is going to give the Canes such issues about how they played and all of that, you have to remember nobody else really. I mean, Toronto kind of gave the Panthers a run for their money, but Toronto was also up 2-0, and then they just fell apart. Tampa, who is a very good team, fell apart to Florida very easily as well. Like, Florida is a hard team to get past right now, for everyone, not just the Canes. And so I just needed the Canes that played games 4 and 5 to come into those first 3 games and make this an actual series where they gave a full 3 periods of hockey. We just didn't get that the first 3 games. And I mean, going down 3-0 is a very hard deficit because like the other team can afford to make mistakes. You can't, which is like, you might get a bad bounce. You might get an unfortunate penalty call. It's kind of living life on the edge, a little bit too much cardiac Canes. So I would love to say it was just Bob, but altogether the Panthers were the better. I think they were the better team in general. I think the Canes definitely could have given a run for their money. But if you're looking at a team that's going to stay consistent and play their game the whole time, that's the better team, and that's the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. You look at this Hurricanes team, and I will say that they exceeded a lot of expectations. Yeah, we could talk about how they didn't play well in games 1 through 3. Yeah, we all know it did. But you look coming into the season, we even said it too, of this is a transition year for the Canes. This is probably a potential, slight step back, not missing the playoffs step back, but not to where you thought this team was going to make a conference final. Even Rod Brind'Amour said after game 5, he was even worried a little bit with the exodus of the guys that left and the players they brought in. But despite how the series went, especially through games 1 through 3, you got to be proud of this team because you made a conference final on a transition season, on a year where this was not the best Hurricanes roster they've had over the last few years. And they were able to do that. And now you're kind of looking at it as, okay, if the Hurricanes can do this with this roster, and now you look into the offseason where you're getting almost $30 million in cap, plus you got a lot of draft capital thanks to the trade with the Stars, who's to say that this isn't going to be a reload year or a just loading up year for Tulsky and his staff? Because now he's getting a full season and a full offseason to do their scouting with him at the helm, not Don Waddell, where there's a different almost mindset of what they want to do. So I think this is kind of like okay, we exceeded expectations. Now let's take that and take it up another few notches with a very huge offseason coming up. So while we can be kind of annoyed or kind of like down on games 1 through 3, I think just overall, this is a team where you're proud of what they did and has now given you the confidence to be like, okay, if they can do it with this roster, what is next season's roster going to carry with all that extra space and all of that draft capital that we could go flip with? That's how you can be. It's bumming for sure, but I'm taking that positive out of that with what they've done this season.
So I pulled up our Metro predictions from the beginning of the year. Zach had the Canes second. Kat and Bailey both had them winning the Metro, but when you think back to that conversation, I would be very pleased if I heard the Canes made it to the ECF. In my mind, I'm like, they're probably going to win the first round and likely get bounced in the second. I had flashbacks from the 23-24 season. But again, this team exceeded expectations, which is amazing. Rod got the most out of them. I still can't believe you said that about, yeah, I thought they were going to miss the playoffs. That is a wild quote.
So
be in that press room with sitting around everyone else, and you all hearing that everyone's just kind of looking at each other like, okay, we are getting a very candid Rod Brind'Amour. He did not hold back. Like, talk about the negativity, like everyone. He circled his hand through the whole room. I'm like, oh yeah, Rod is taking the gloves off on this one. He was very candid last night or Wednesday night.
Yeah. So a lot of people are saying for this year to start it. Like, I know we weren't saying, like, I know we were talking about it and all of us were like, of course they're going to make playoffs. Like, that's a weird thing. But there were a lot of people not even having the Canes make playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
They said that we're going to miss it, or they were going to get out, or like, and if they made it, they would get out early. And then everyone's tune changed when they went on that really big winning run to start the season. You're like, wow, this team's actually put together. It's really good. And they're all clicking together. And that was like, it was honestly like an alignment of the stars, because you get Natchez is hot all of a sudden, the guy that you needed for a while. You've got, and he pairs well with Ghost, and Robinson is also up there. And honestly, credit Rod Brind'Amour for the coaching of getting all of those new pieces clicking so quickly. And so you're like, this is great. And you have Freddie back at that time. So you go on this big run. And so everyone's tune starts to change. And then you start seeing like puck money or whatever it is, where it starts, giving us the favorable odds as we're going into playoffs.
Oh yeah. Money puck. Yeah.
But the same team. So they go on, to start the season, everyone's like kind of shaky, because you're like, you didn't really get like some big names. It's kind of like, okay, what are we actually going to do? You've lost Gensel. It's very up in the air. So then they go on this thing and everyone's winning streak and everyone's tune changes. But then Freddie goes down and you start having these issues with like fluctuation in goaltending. Everyone's like, oh no, this is why they're going to crash and burn, because maybe it's not the team, but then the goalie issue is going to be an issue again. So there's that. And then we go on the up and downs of the losing and like, where are we? Why can't we get the team back and together? We have like 400 different goalies playing for our team. And then you go through the whole debacle of the trade deadline. And that's like another mental battle for this team, where you have everyone talking about this one player, and this one player is so transformative and so great. And then he comes to your team and he's like, I don't know how it was in the locker room, but he seems so checked out on the ice. And the fact that later he said he didn't want to be here, I'm sure for the guys, that's kind of like, okay, well, now you're just making us look bad and you're not helping us. And we're here to make a playoff run. We're here to defy expectations. So they're put through this ringer up and down, being talked about all the time. So then you're going into playoffs, you start getting going again. But you're still having, while we're favored and all the like graphs and all of this stuff, there's still a lot of people like the Canes aren't the big talking story. It's going to be Dallas. It's going to be Edmonton, the Avalanche. Like, it's all of this. And so as they go into playoffs, you get like matched up with the New Jersey Devils, who are a good team, an injured team now going into this. And so you still got people saying, and we all know the people I'm talking about, you still got people saying the Canes are going to be the worst in the East. They're going to be bounced in the first by an injured Devils team. They get past them. Okay. So then it's all about Washington. This has been the powerhouse for the whole season. They've got the big greatest goal scorer of all time. And the Canes are like, okay, well, he's not going to do anything against us unless it's 5v3 and takes care of that. For a team where a lot of people at the beginning of the season said, you got rid of big pieces. I understand why Rod said that. Like, as he knows even more of the inner workings than we do. But I will say this season, like this offseason was one of those off seasons where it was a big hit to the team, where you lose guys that have been there forever, like Pesci, Shea, eventually you lose guys like Natchez and Drury during the season. That's even like, talk about that. That's more guys that have been around for a while. And you're just like, okay, we're in this big shakeup. So I understand the mindset. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, so many people were like, well, it's a retool year. whatever. And then I think the Canes defied expectations. They got the hopes up. So then when they actually kind of went down to earth, where you're like, okay, well, maybe you're not actually fully matched up against the defending champs in the way you want to be, then people were like, wow, how did they get here? And it's like, do you not remember that this is exceeding everything that we wanted them to? This is great. And honestly, I'm so happy that they were able to fight back, get that ECF win. The next goal is an ECF game win at home. That's the next milestone for this team. Because one, I'm so glad they finished in front of their fans. I'm so glad they finished fighting those first 3 games. I was like, I'm going to cheer for this team as long as you're fighting. And they kind of rolled over and died those first 3 games. So I think these Canes, there's so many positives, and we'll talk more about those later, but there's so many positives coming away from this season. Like, yes, it hurts in the moment that the season's done, especially the way you started going into playoffs. And yes, like, do you want to keep going? But there's so many positives for this team compared to so many other teams that didn't even either make the playoffs or got out earlier than we did.
Which is well said, Kat, because talk about teams that didn't meet expectations this year. The President's Trophy champions, Winnipeg Jets, bounced. Where at the beginning of the year, they were hotter than us. The Canes were hot. They went on, 15-game winning streak? So expectations were sky high for them. They didn't do anything. Canes got further than them. You touched on the Washington Capitals already. We were able to bounce them, Metro Division winners. Our friends over in New York, the Rangers, everyone thought they were going to win the Metro pretty much. Didn't even make the playoffs. The Bruins got blown up in the middle of the year. They said, let's rebuild. For Colorado to not make it out of the first, our Miko trade partner. Nashville, the biggest disappointment of the entire season, spending all that money just to end up not doing anything, which is insane. So we talked about it. Exceeding expectations is better than having something like that happen with any of the teams that I just listed. So keeping that in mind moving forward is huge, because you could be a fan of one of those teams that I just listed right there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like you said, Kat, this team didn't quit, and that's where you saw in Game 4, because they shut him out, and Freddie gets his second, shutout of the postseason. Now he's up to 5. Great performance out of him. And then you look in Game 5, you start off well. Sebastian Aho had 2. You got the first 2 goals of the game. Three goals in like 4 periods for him, essentially. And they were playing their game, and just within a span of 4:36. Lead's gone. Now you're down. Jarvie ties it, and then just Sasha Barkov doing Barkov things. But at least you got the efforts that you needed. I think that's where you saw a big difference in games 4 and 5 compared to 1 through 3. And you had the depth there of Logan Stankoven, goals in back. Like, he had goals in games 3 and in game 4. What a playoff debut with the Canes for him. Like, joining guys like Warren Fogle and Eric Cole with 5 goals at least in one playoff round, and Cole got 6 in 2002. Stankoven scored a goal in an elimination game that's also Warren Fogle who did one, and the late Joseph Vasicek. He stepped up huge. And Seth Jarvis, this guy. What more can you say about him? It's just, you had a lot of depth that came out really well. And the fact that the big boys that you really needed in this series stepped up. It's just one of those things where, yeah, you wish you had in the first 3 games, but at least in games 4 and 5 you saw it, and they didn't turn into some other teams in the postseason that rolled over in game 7, or as of when we're recording, in a game 5. An elimination game where teams are getting absolutely rolled on. The Hurricanes managed to, yes, they got a lead. They lost it, retied it, and lost in a battle. But at least they did in a way where you're like, I'm proud of this team for actually fighting, instead of just being like, all right, well, our season's over, we're just going to go take a nap. They didn't do that. And that shows you the respect that these guys have for Rod, is that they're not going to just kind of just mail it in. This team is not a mail-it-in team.
Which is amazing because per the Spit and Chicklets podcast when Tripp was on
Well, that
this
was
week,
so great.
he said, yeah, Rod gave it to him in Sunrise before game 4, and they responded. So that is a group of guys that absolutely respects Rod, because like Tripp said it as well. They would have laid down if they didn't care, if they wanted Rod gone. That's not the case. They just played weird, but they responded when they needed to. And it's nice to end the season the way they did, because again, this would be a completely different conversation that we would be having if they got swept and they no-showed. It'd be a nightmare. Kane's Twitter would be on fire, but instead, we know what the guys can bring. We know what they can do. They just didn't do it, like we say all the time on this show. 60 minutes of Canes hockey. They had 0 minutes of Canes hockey for a few games, and that is what cost them at the end of the day.
I do like to from the when Tripp was on the Chicklets was the fact that going back to the former head coach, we're not going to bring his name up, when Rod was the assistant, and Jordan Stahl literally says to Tripp, Rod needs to be our head coach. That says a lot for a Jordan Stahl who was a co-captain, which I still can't believe that was even a thing at one point. Oof, Maroons at that time of Hurricanes history. But for the fact that even before he became head coach, the guys wanted him to be that guy behind the bench. That tells you how much even then you're talking, what, 17, 18 team before Rod, and they wanted him to do that. This shows a lot of respect that those guys had to want him to be the head coach, and now that he has been. And we'll talk about more about Brind'Amour in the playoffs and his tenure later on. But these guys love Rod, and they don't want to disappoint him, because he's the last guy you want to do that to.
Yeah. I'll be the first to say there are times in this playoffs I did question Rod. In Rod we trust always, but there were definitely some times where I did question a little bit. But honestly, again, with the way the players play for him, the way the players, they never say anything or allude to anything wrong with their head coach. Like, they will take it on like, hey, we were given a job, we didn't fulfill it. That's not on Rod. Rod will go stick up for his players. He will fight for them on the bench as much as he's allowed, can't get on the ice himself. But yeah, all the talk about like, will this performance kind of determine how Rod, his length with the team? That's a wild take. And I know we can talk more about it later, but for now, you're listening to a bunch of Canes fans talk about the Hurricanes, of course, but we wanted to bring in another little not so biased opinion. But yeah, our boss, Kyle himself, welcome.
Himself.
First of all, thank you. I know it was like last minute, and I'm like, wait, I want to come on tonight. I know you guys might be recording. Bring me on. First of all, good to see you guys again. Long time no see.
I feel like we brought in a radio caller. Like, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah. What did I win?
A crisp high five.
So, first of all, how we doing after last night?
Processing better than if we had gone out after game 4 playing like we did the first 3 games.
I gotta say, like, that was Sebastian Aho's best playoff game I've seen him play by far. He was sensational last night, and I'll give Seth Jarvis credit too last night. Yeah, like, you clearly came out to play. It's just, are you gonna look back in that second period and think what could have been, right, in that 4-5 minute stretch? And
4:36,
right? So like, you look at that and you go, man, like, you just hold the fort for that little bit, and things, we might be talking game 6. But regardless, like, I thought you guys played a great game though, outside of that little mishap there, whatever that was in the second period. And but that's not my reason why I'm here.
So here we go.
here's the very quick story, and then I'll let you guys be. So I knew this is all kind of overblown in that proportion, but I knew the demise was coming. Okay. And it all started back in, I think it was after game 3 when they played the Devils in round 1, right? I got a nice message from a certain individual. And they wanted a third-party opinion on the matter.
Mm-hmm.
Kat might be knowing what we're getting at here.
Mm-hmm.
And was asked about the incident that took place between Meyer and Anderson. I gave my opinion. Never heard anything back.
No.
But I gave my honest third-party opinion. And I go, oh, first of all, hadn't heard from Kat in a while. Thought, nice to see you. How's it going? Thought we were going to have a nice conversation about, the Meyer and Anderson incident. Nope. Didn't hear a word. So I go, oh, okay. That's when I knew that it was coming for you. And now we're here.
No, I asked. Okay, so I'm a big proponent of protecting goalies. And I am. We also asked Neil about it from Devil's State of Mind. So we also got his opinion on it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask an outside opinion because while I was a little heated about it, I was like, well, let me be a little bit neutral and get some other opinion. And I respected that you had a different opinion. And I didn't argue or continue with it.
Okay. I was like,
that's
wow.
why, honestly, you'd probably be glad I didn't continue the conversation.
I was ready for a fight.
My fight wasn't with you, honestly. But if I caught Meyer outside, that's where the fight would have been.
Fair. Totally blown out of proportion, but I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was really funny at the time. And also I wanted to give my quick take on, you guys are just talking about Brind'Amour real quick too. It's funny how days can change where initially, you look back after game 2 even, and you're like, oh my God, like Rod might be a scapegoat here coming up. And if they get swept, right, obviously they go down in 5. The way he approached the media last night, like kind of made me sway a different way that I don't think you can see anybody else really coach this team, because I think it's going to hurt the locker room if he happened to be that scapegoat going into the off season. So yeah, like he clearly deserves the job, right? I just don't see anybody else really taking that place. And if it does, I think it's going to harm it more than it would help the situation, right? Because it's not to overstate that you guys are, you've made it back-to-back conferences, and considering where the Metro is right now and how really bad it is in all perspective, I don't think you can make some sudden movements here. I think if there's anything, you got to find a way to establish it. But also there's the understanding and the mindset of, there's one real thing that I took away from this entire series was that, my God, the Metro was awful this year. And I think they got exposed. And I was talking about it with Neil the other day. And he was saying that if the Devils were healthy, they would have had a chance. And I go, you're out of your mind. The Devils would have got smoked. Washington, frankly, would have gotten smoked too. I think it just says more about how good Florida really is. And I don't know if they're going to go away. And I would make an argument that, although I hate to say it, that I maybe think Toronto would have had a chance, in this series as well too. I might have had them as a favorite, but that's here nor there. So I think it just spoke to like how much the Metro just needs to improve next year, because it seems like it could run through the Atlantic again, depending on the way the offseason shapes out. And we'll see how it goes, because this is all just initial stuff and all this craziness can still happen. But I really thought that I feel like they got exposed, but not in like a terrible way. It was kind of in a way of like a respectable level.
So I'll start with the take on this. So I agree with you on the Metro. So the thing with the Metro is it's fallen. The Metro used to be one of the hardest divisions in the league, especially because unlike the West, it was a lot of very strong defensive teams. Yes, there would be some good offensive players, but the defense in the East far outweighed the West, and they were just these, like, it was so hard to get through them.
Boring.
Yes, boring. Well, I'm okay. Listen, we can all disagree. When you say boring, you think Islanders. You like
Yeah,
everyone agrees on that one. But if you also look at the teams though that are over here, besides like Tampa and the Florida team, so you've got teams that are kind of like they were on a really big high and now they're on their decline a little bit. So you've got the Penguins, who were powerhouses for so long, and then their big key players are starting to age out, and they haven't really set themselves up for the future because of how they've kept those players. Then you've got kind of the same with the Capitals. Like this year, again, absolute shocker every year because we all thought they were going to go the way of the Penguins. Islanders have never really helped themselves do anything. Flyers, like they could be, but again, they're not like those are two teams that don't really help themselves. You got two younger teams with like the Blue Jackets and the Devils that really could push and keep going, but injuries are holding them back, so they're not quite there. And so the Canes have kind of been like, we've had our resurgence and we're just still on our way up, where a lot of the guys and teams that have given us trouble for so many years because that was their prime and we were just trying to reach them are now on their way down while the Canes are on their way up. And if you look at the Atlantic, there's not a lot, like all of a sudden the Bruins have fallen off. Like they just like their team exploded. And then the Leafs have been like the same for a while, but they've like plateaued a little bit. But the Lightning and the Panthers have been teams that have continuously like gone on the up and up. And all the other teams that are in the Atlantic have just been like kind of okay. So it's a lot of teams that were powerhouses that are on the decline that now have made this side on the East a little bit more easier for some of the like stronger teams to peek through. Whereas the West, it's like all of them are juggernauts at the moment. But I think this season, even though the cap space is going up, I think this season you're going to see a lot of them going into next season are going to have struggles with what they've given up for these players and what like they've given up so much to get all of this on their teams. And now they're going to be lacking in picks. They're going to be lacking in like space for all these players that they've added just to get kicked out of playoffs.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good. No. Yeah. There is definitely a bigger picture of looking at the East as a whole. And the whole like Toronto I've seen people say, oh, Toronto would have smoked Carolina. No.
Toronto should have done the damn job and won. You had a 2-0 lead.
That was your
I don't want to hear them say that anymore. If you're going to say we could have done it, then you should have done it. We were all rooting for you.
That's your first mistake believing in them. But
I know. I made that mistake in making a bet on them too. Sorry. Go ahead, Zach.
I was going to say it's the Leafs are a completely different team compared to what Florida is. Florida's a physical team with guys who can score. Toronto is a team who's got stars who can score, but their defense is a little bit more shaky. So I think going up against a team like Carolina would have been a team that probably would have imposed their system well on Toronto like Florida did to Carolina. So I think Toronto doing what Florida did to Carolina, not the same thing because the systems are completely different. Go back to what Kyle said about Rod. If, and of course, we talked a little bit about what Chirp Tracy said with guys from Chicklets and the fact that the locker room loves, Rod and stuff like that. And Jordan Stahl said, when they had their previous coach and that Rod should be the head coach. And I mean, it's true, obviously. I mean, this team will never want to disappoint Rod. And I brought this point up yesterday before the game where I think it was a podcast of my Commodores on. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. But the co-host was like, depending if the Hurricanes lose, does Rod Brind'Amour get let go? And I think even Keith Yandel brought it up on Chicklets before that started that whole conversation. I see all that to say this. My point being is the Carolina Hurricanes, I don't know if you know this, Kyle, went from 97 to 2018. Guess how many playoffs they made in that span?
From 97 to 18. So what's that? That's 2022, I think. I'll call 16, 17. They made a lot.
They made 5 playoffs.
Oh, wow. I thought they made way more than that.
They made 5 playoffs in that span, and that included a 10-year gap of 09
That's fair.
to 19 of not making it. They made 5 total playoffs. And you're
I
talking,
thought you were going to go that way and be like, this is why Rod needs to stay. But sorry, continue.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm going into that. Because you look at Laviolette, he won the cup. 1 playoffs. 1, and that's the one they won the cup in. That was it for him. That was his only playoff appearance with Carolina. Maurice had a couple. Really about it. You go through the drought, then you get Rod Brind'Amour. And what do? 7 consecutive playoff appearances. Fastest coach to 300 wins.
Yeah.
Name a coach right now and that's even available. And we're talking the usual cast of characters that get recycled through every single team. What coach right now is available that can get? I mean, Blashill is now coaching the Hawks. He's stunk in Detroit. Joe Quenneville's back, and he's with the Ducks. And the thing is, the reason why Florida got good, because they had to fire him to get Paul Maurice. If that whole situation doesn't happen and Quenneville's still with Florida, do we even see a powerhouse? That's an aspect I don't think people even really thought about.
Yeah.
Because Quenneville got fired at the start of it, in like 20 games into the season. Okay, then who else you got? Torts is the only one that's left.
No.
But,
you lose that locker room so fast.
But here's the thing, though. So you got Lindy Ruff goes back to Buffalo for a second time. Rick Tockett's down Philadelphia. Now they're looking, and I think Marco Sturm's going to Boston, which isn't bad. It's not bad. I know it's not final, but there's a lot of pointing to that. Torts is the only one that's available. And he's been on how many teams now? Oh, and sorry, Laviolette's available again, too. And do you want to go through that system again? Not really. So, okay, to everyone who says, all right, we need to get rid of Rod, who do you replace him with?
Well, then, one, Kyle, thanks for stealing my entire script for this episode. Really appreciate that. But 2, let's ask the big question. Is Rod Brind'Amour on the hot seat? Yes or no?
No.
Sorry.
No. And I think to the point earlier was with Rod. So 1, you could just look at his success, and every time someone says we need to take him out, I'm like, give me someone you would put in his place. And no one ever has an actual answer for that. Because if you're going to say someone, it might be a coach that's on a winning team right now, but also why would that coach, they're with that team and they're being successful with that team. You're not going to get them. You're going to get the unsuccessful coaches that were let go for some reason. And then second of all, do you know how many of the guys, like you said, you would lose that locker room because so many of those guys said, I came here to play for Rod. I want to play for Rod. I signed this long-term deal to play in Carolina. Most of that, if not 3/4 of it, was for Rod. So the fact that you would have all of your big key players, if you take out Rod, I mean, we talk about the locker room mentality with this team, it would be absolutely out the window. And it would almost be like a full rebuild because you would have to get that chemistry back. They'd have to learn new systems. He is the scapegoat. Again, like I said, there were times where I'm like, sometimes I do question. He knows things on the back end that we'll never know because he's the coach. He's in there with the players. He's going to tell you straight up as it is. But like, he's also not going to tell you everything because he's the coach and he's got stuff that he knows on the back end. But no, Rod is not in the hot seat. And you can tell just from the games 4 and 5, you can tell that he can push them to more. It's if the guys on the ice want to do it. And they'll be the first ones to say, hey, we didn't do what we were supposed to do. It's not like, hey, Rod didn't coach us well enough. It's going to be like, we didn't do the job that he told us to do. And that's on us. And that's one thing that these guys really appreciate about Rod. He'll yell till that gum comes flying out of his mouth on that bench against those refs for them. But those guys love him. The fans love him. And to say anything on like us leaving any of these playoffs at whatever round we leave it is on him is a little wild.
Oh no, like the thing is like you saw it a lot through games 3, game 4, and even like looking into game 5, and it's wild. And when you look at the whole thing too, is Rod is that coach. Like he usually doesn't call his guys out. He called them out after game 3, but he's not going to be putting individual players out. He's just not that guy. He's not that coach that's going to go out there and be a Torts or a Talk or whoever is going to go and blast their guy. That's just not Rod. And I think that's one of the things why these guys stick up for him so well. And the fact that how this series went and it turns into Rod's got to go. It's why? Like what makes any type of sense to get rid of someone like that? There is none. He's your most consistent coach in terms of wins. Go into the playoffs, multiple playoff wins. What coach right now even can say they've had a run like Rod Brind'Amour's had? Rod Brind'Amour is one of 2 coaches to go 7 consecutive playoffs and 7 consecutive rounds won. Oh, in 3 Eastern Conference final appearances. Record, so be it. I don't care. You made the dance. You can't fluke your way into an Eastern Conference final. I don't care if you're going to be like, well, the Devils were hurt. The Capitals crashed out. I don't care. The playoffs are an animal to get through. And to say, oh, well, the Hurricanes lucked in. There's no luck. Like, Kyle, have you ever seen a team get labeled as, they fluked their way in to a conference final? Oh, they fluked their way into a cup final. There's no fluking. There
rarely is. And if there is, it's, luck on one play, right? But you brought up a good point, too, with Rod, in that if you did cut him loose, who's left? Right. It would just, it's
Laviolette and Talk. Those
right.
Or Torts, sorry.
Yeah.
Torts and Laviolette are the only guys that are left.
It would completely ruin any sort of plans they had going into next season. Right. And frankly, like, Rod needs to be maybe more into the conversation of the plans going into next year as well, too. Last thing, and then I'll let you guys have your shenanigans here. And staying on Rod here. If you go into next year, and the way that I'm taking a page out of Florida's book, nobody really had eyes on them second half of the regular season, right? For me, they kind of flown under the radar a little bit, and it was just the mindset of they know they can get there. They're just getting ready for the dance. And full credit to Bill Zito for making the move to get Marchand at the deadline. But you wonder if Rod and management maybe need to go into next season saying, all right, we have the guys that can make it, right? We know that this team is proven and that they're good enough to make it. The question is going to become who's the type of players that you really need when it comes playoff time, right? Especially going to free agency this year. Guys are paying Sam Bennett this offseason $9-10 million, not for his play in the regular season, but what he does in the playoffs, right?
He's a system guy. He's a system guy. I'm sorry, he's not that money. He's built on the system.
Exactly. Yeah. So the real look is who's out there potentially free agency going in the deadline next year that is playoff ready. The playoff systematic player that you need in case you get in a rut early, in case that things aren't going your way, right? That maybe isn't going to change the tides when it comes to goal scoring or whatever, but provides a little bit more of that spark, right? So, and again, I'm third party, not knowing the ins of this, but it feels like that Rod just needs to be involved in the conversation more and to really have this team more prepared, because you watch what Florida has done time and time again. And you've seen what Tampa did too in the years prior. And it's just, they have guys that are just systematically ready for the playoffs every year. They might not be there in the regular season. They might not show up. They might get you 30, 40 points, whatever it may be. But when it's crunch time, that's when it matters the most. And there's guys within the Carolina Hurricanes where they may just have to take a good look in the mirror after kind of what happened and go, what can I give come playoffs next year when they get there? Because I think it's a foregone conclusion in my mind that they can get there, considering how bad the Metro is this year. And I don't know how it's going to change. Rod needs to be involved in the conversations moving forward. I think there's guys out there in the upcoming free agent market that you can acquire to be ready for this type of moment again next year and get them a little bit more prepared, because, and last thing, you looked at Florida last night after they won. There was barely any celebration because they know, right? They know the type of team that they are, and that's a team that's just full of confidence. Hence the Dairy Queen run in Carolina the other day.
We also, one thing is we did take that celebration away from their home barn, which is a little win in its own. But, Yeah, I fully agree. That's some great points, Kyle. And I think we're gonna talk about that here in a little bit, talking about a little bit of studs and duds on
There
the
you
Carolina Hurricanes team right now, and maybe stay or go with some UFAs in this off season.
Me jumping the
But
gun again. Sorry.
no, it's great. If you want to, I think we're just gonna have a quick word from our sponsors. If you want to stick around and talk about it with us, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, I can
But
set. Sure.
yeah, we'll take a quick break here and come back with our thoughts on the Carolina Hurricanes players and their future.
The fastest game on ice just hit another gear. Welcome to the Stanley Cup playoffs, where legends are made and every shift could turn the tide. And now, with the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you could take every slap shot, breakaway, and overtime thriller to the next level. New to betting on the Stanley Cup playoffs? You're in for an exciting time. Getting started is a breeze. Fire up the DraftKings Sportsbook app, pick your team to win, lock in your wager, and you're off to the races. It's fast, simple, and puts you right in the middle of the action. Here's the kicker. New customers who bet just $5 will score $300 in bonus bets if their wager hits. That's right, turn $5 into a playoff payout. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code PRO THPN. That's promo code THPN to unlock $300 in bonus bets when your $5 bet wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. You know what else folks can get in on? The NHL Shop. It's playoffs. All the playoff merch is here. Get in, whether it's your team, whether you're a team of a fan of someone else for whatever crazy reason. The NHL Shop has you covered. Yeah, why not? Buy it all. We won't mind. You can get in. We have our link posted on all of our link trees. You check out the links. Let me share the official link since it's still a goofy one at the moment. But go to nhlshop.755j.net/JEZ6B6.
I wonder if hopefully we can get that switch and be like, all right, let's make it simple for you guys. But
yeah, that's on
right there on this.
too.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
right
that is
it's right there on the screen. It ain't a pretty one, but hey, it works. Takes you right to the NHL Shop. We can shop all 32, right? No,
32.
Am I
32.
off on my teams? Okay,
32,
I thought I was tripping for a second. All 32 teams.
Yeah, you're right.
Utah included. You can get in at NHL Shop. That's
Utah, which might be we might all know now. It might be for sure Utah Mammoths now that they slipped on their YouTube channel. Unfortunate there, but
hey, but you know
so
what?
When that job comes out,
yeah. Hey, but you know what?
Comes out, come get it.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just saying, click that link and get yourself some Taylor Hall jerseys. You know he'll be there for a couple seasons, so
that's right.
Taylor Hall, some Stank.
Hall, Stank, Ghost Walker. There's a Jarvie. There's a bunch of guys. There's a lot of guys you can get jerseys for. That's just the one good thing about the Hurricanes. Everyone's available. Everybody.
And then not only that, got to touch on the OG. Summer's here, right? They got some new hours.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, some new hours. What are they, Zach?
Oh, putting me on the spot like that. I was even putting me on the spot. I'm like, wait a minute. I just sent the link for it. You know what? Yeah.
Primo X Hockey, new hours coming to you soon.
For his group project, he's like, here's the link to my research. Oh, you need me to actually tell you what
yeah, so Mondays 10 to 6. They are closed on Tuesdays, but Wednesday and Thursdays also 10 to 6, Friday as well. Saturday is 9 a.m. to 3, so a little bit shorter hours. Make sure to get in. And then Sunday, just 5 hours. It's 1 to 6. But hey, you know what? Go support those guys. They're absolutely amazing. They're season ticket holders, and they're just a great group of people. Been with us since even before episode 1 was even out. So yeah, Primo is the absolute best. Love those guys. Looking for anything, they got it. Just, they're 15 minutes from the arena. They're right there.
And with the new rinks that just opened up in Cary, all of their stuff come in handy.
Apex, yep.
Apex.
Oh yeah. They do have outdoor. They have outdoor pucks, and they do have stuff for rollerblades. So if you want to get your blades on, they got you. They got you with the hook up on those wheels, and they're pretty nice too. They're pretty clean and outdoor sticks. And if you need visors, if you need helmets, they got them too. Everything you need, they got it. Plus their merch is sick. How can you not love it?
And that was some wonderful words from our sponsors. Again, thank you to all of them for honestly just supporting this podcast and letting us do what we love to do, and that is talk hockey with all of you. So big thank you to them. Big thank you to the network for also supporting us and supporting the sponsors. And of course, follow your favorite Carolina Hurricanes podcast on all of our socials whenever you guys get the chance. Like, follow, subscribe, all of those fun things. There's probably going to be a lot to talk about in this off season after we get through our little morning period. But for now, the conversation, which I'm sure you guys can also on all of our socials chime in about, because I'm sure you all have thoughts on this as well. But talking about who we think are some studs and duds. The much more rhymey and simplified version of what Kyle was saying is, who are your playoff performers? Who really stood out? We just really want to see how the Canes did in the playoffs. And there's obviously some that stuck out. But I would say my stud to start it off, Mr. Freddie Anderson. I was so happy we finally had him. And I loved it. Every minute of it. When Freddie isn't injured, give me him all day.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay. Well, that's a resounding agreement. Thanks, guys.
Well, no, the thing is, it's a conference final. I would say, yeah, he was a stud in the conference final. Outside of the 9 goals, you can't really put all of them on him. You can't put it on him. No.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
You can't put it on him. 1 or 2 maybe, but overall,
he is not the reason we went down those games. No, Freddie was I maintain. And if you look in games 4 and games 5, he did his job. When the team in front of him performed, he was there.
That's what I was getting at. It's not Freddie. He was fine. I thought he did great in the conference final. It's just that they're going to look at the 9 goals and be like, well, he didn't stop him. It's like, well, he can only do so much. So, yeah, if you look at game 3 before, yeah, if you look at game 4. Yeah, game 4 and what he did for most of game 5, yeah, he did great. I would say outside of, the 9 goals are kind of what people are going to look at. And I'm like, I would look at context of what happened in that first part. But other than that, I think, yeah, I would agree. I would put Freddie as a stud. So
I understand where you're coming from. I would maybe put him in that middle echelon, between stud and dud. Because fair enough, like he could have had some of those saves maybe in game 1 and game 2. I just think you're gonna look back and see that, like, oh, there was 9 goals that did go through, right? And you know what? Maybe they weren't all of his fault, but I would maybe put him in that middle. So I can see an argument for both sides, but I can understand why you would go stud for that.
All right, Zach, who's your stud then? Since mine was a lukewarm answer, apparently.
Seth Jarvis. I'm pretty slim dunk on this one. He got a point in every single game, and he was someone who was noticeable in every single game. If you look at some other guys in the conference final, it was a lot of, where is this guy at? Where is this guy at? Jarvis, to me, was someone who was noticeable in every single game and was someone that made an impact. And even in the games where they were behind in and lost, I still think Jarvis was someone who was the guy we all know that he is. The Swiss Army knife, the spark plug on a line. For me, it's Jarvie.
Kat, I see your face, and I think we're both in agreement on this a little bit, because there was times where Seth Jarvis did not look like himself. Like he was checked out in games. I don't know if he's injured. I saw someone maybe mention shoulder surgery this offseason. I don't know if that'll be true or not.
Corey Laviolette, depending on if he wants to go to the Olympics for Canada.
Yes. So whether he was actually injured or not, or just was down in the dumps with the rest of the team, game 3 or some of the games at home too, like he just looked disheveled. Like I pointed him out. I said, Jarvie doesn't want to be here right now. So yes, he shows up on the stat sheet by having at least a point every game, but he was a mixed bag for me in this series because there were certainly times that he did not seem present.
I'm going to echo that and say I think this was maybe one of the worst series for Jarvis. His fight from the previous 2 series where he was laying the body, he was all over the ice, he was buzzing, wasn't there. I do think we're going to find, like you said about the shoulder, I think it's probably a little bit of injury, maybe something else, but it wasn't his normal fight. Honestly, the way that's, we'll talk about probably later, but the way that Stankoven was all over, that's what I normally see from Jarvis, and Jarvis wasn't there. His line in general was stifled for quite a bit, but normally at least I'm like, hey, at least Jarvis is doing what he can do. And I didn't see that a whole lot. There are multiple times where I was like, I need to see, I'm not seeing Jarvis, and we really need him to do a little bit extra like he normally does. So I guess on the way that you said with Freddie, I say he's okay. I think, and I say okay because I think he wasn't at his, like, either health wise, mentally, like he just wasn't at his peak this series. And I'm going to say for a lot of guys this series, that's the case. He is a playoff performer. So he's going to get those points. He's going to contribute. But I think the way he did previously was not there in this series for me.
I'll give him his flowers for the last game because I thought there was some contribution there, but ultimately I think there is concern that I think his health was probably playing a factor in the series as to why maybe that was just behind the scenes reason why he wasn't playing to his full potential. So yeah, I'm kind of down like that middle road again, but I thought he had a bit of a resurgence there the latter half of the series. Tough to find it there in the first half though.
This is going so well.
I've never.
How's it feel, Zach? How's it feel?
I didn't say anything really negative about Freddie. I said the 9 goals weren't on him.
I didn't say anything negative about Jarvis. I said I'm actually concerned.
Back to Zach's point for a second, and we'll talk a little bit. Yes, this is definitely not on Freddie or the goalies. I have a dud I'll say for later, more towards coaching that I think caused some of those goals as well. But continuing on our stud train that everyone's going to disagree on.
Yeah, if we're doing just conference final, this is going to be a lot harder segment than it was going to be. If we're talking full playoffs, yeah, this would be an easy conversation. But conference final,
we're sticking with ECF for the ECF show because this is what people want to talk about. All the pain points. I'm biased when I say this. Nikishin, not on the stat sheet, is he a -5 in the series in 3 games? Yes, but for what he got thrown into, all things considered, I think he did a great job of stepping up, considering everything he had going against him. Did he make a few mistakes? Sure. Everyone did in the series, though. But in terms of what I saw and how excited I am for the future, I call Nikishin a stud because he hung around with the big boys. So that's my take. I consider Nikishin a stud. Disagree.
Okay. Like Kyle, middle of the road. He did fine in game 4. Other than that, he was okay. He didn't play a lot. And I think this was his 4th playoff game? Maybe 3rd? You're talking about he played okay. Like I think game 4 was probably his best one. Game 5 was all right. I would not say he was a stud. I'm going down the Kyle route of lukewarm on a guy who came over to North America, got thrown into a playoff run, and it just I'm not crapping on the kid. I mean, I'm very excited for him as well, but I wouldn't call him a stud on one game and kind of mixed bags on the others. So yeah, I'll go middle of the road on Nikisha, but with a lot of upside.
He's a bright spot. He's a bright spot. Kyle, your thoughts, and if you watched all of our games, do you have a stud?
Yeah, I'm gonna go a bit out of pocket a little bit too. I'm gonna go Logan Stankoven actually.
There's gonna be that's gonna be your first all around agree.
Hey, all right. Yeah, I think with where he was inserted into the lineup, and you look at, I believe it was game 3 and 4, he contributed on the score sheet. I thought
Yep.
he had a great first period last night in game 5 as well too. He had some pretty decent scoring opportunities almost between the hash marks there. He had some good drives there. So for a guy who just finally was looking for an opportunity to play, yeah, I mean, it's tough to find one there in the first 2 games to find a stud, but I thought he really kind of stepped up in the latter half of the series.
Yeah, no, Stankovic did great. I have no notes on anything negative. He contributed. He put himself out there and made big goals when it was very much needed, and he was very noticeable. So, yeah, no, I completely agree with Kyle on this one. Stank was definitely a stud in the series. Probably one of very, very, very small amount of guys that could say that they are a bona fide stud across the board without someone going, about it.
Honestly, he's up there for me, which is a little bit more of the like plus size of the production side of things. But he's like a Martinook, but with more production. If you're looking like score wise, both the way that he was able to get in on some of those much bigger defenders and just get under them and get that puck and zip away with it after playing physical at the boards, but then also just kind of stick handling around people. I love to see this kid on our team. Like his movement, he never gave up. Again, we've had recent acquisitions to the team who didn't give a flying fart to try, and Stank has tried since day one. And even in these games where you're getting the brakes beat off of you, he didn't give up. And again, this is the only reason why I kind of disagreed a little on Jarvis, was because that's the Jarvis we know as well. Jarvis and Stank play a very similar game. And that's the only reason I was like, something's off with Jarvis, because he's the way that Stank is playing in the ECF is normally how Jarvis is. And if you have both of them, that's a problem. But I fully agree. I think Stank, I'm so happy he's on our team. The fact that like he's, even when he gets one goal and we're down like a couple, but he gets that one, he celebrates like we've got the lead, and he's just putting his whole heart out there. So I think that's 100% a stud for us.
And then the final one, let's say it all together. Jacob Slavin.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's a given. That's a given.
Yeah.
But yeah, he looked great. Rod played him. So Rod played him
a
ton of minutes as he needed him to, and he stepped up. I mean, it's as reliable as any player on this team. He did his job.
The fact that he did he finish a plus? I haven't looked at this.
+3 in the series.
Wow.
He double shifted too on
10.
some penalty kills. He double shifted, like all his line would change and he would stay out there.
I think he played I think he played 28 minutes or very close to the last 2 games, and Morrow played less than 10 in game 4 and in game 5. Yeah, Slavin was worked, but that's the good cardiovascular of this team. Of course, you finish your day with Billy. We are going to escape the absolute dog crap out of you, and that's basically what it was. And what I've been saying a lot recently, the legs feed the wolves, and Jacob Slavin is definitely one of those guys that legs and stick work speak for himself. And that's why he's going to be a bona fide stud across no matter what series. And the fact, too, is you look at the conference final, just the playoffs overall. I know this is more of an ECF thing, but playoff overall, 0 penalty minutes in the playoffs. And you look back at his whole season as an entity, you're talking 90. I think he played 80 games in the regular season and 15 in the playoffs. 95 games, 8 penalty minutes for Jacob Slavin, and all 8 were in the regular season.
I just love that. Is one, honestly, that's one highlight of the playoffs, and especially the ECF, is the amount of recognition that Slavin got. It started with 4 Nations and it just continued on into playoffs to the point where people like, keep an eye on him. He's such a shutdown. He put on an absolute clinic in game 4. He was stopping everything in sight. You just wish he could be on the ice the whole game. But I absolutely loved a podcast that I do check, another hockey podcast that I do check out time to time with the Empty Netters. They were like, Jacob Slavin is an elite defenseman. And of course, as soon as you say that, everyone's going to jump in and be like, but what about Cale Makar? What about Werenski? What about all this stuff? And then, of course, there was one guy being like, did you see the scores of the games? Like, and they put up Slavin's like stat sheet. And so they're like trying to argue the point of he has no goals, no assists, all of that. But then you look over there on the little far side is like the plus minus. And I just love that they chirped back and they said, dude, you're like proving our point. The fact that you saw those games and you see his plus minus in those games, and the person that actually came back and said, oh, you're right. It was like, yeah, it's not just the goals, it's not just the assists, it's like what he actually contributes on the ice, to the point where the rest of the team could be negatives, the rest of the team could be falling apart, and he's going to do his job the whole time. Like, he's not going to be the one on the ice for most of those goals. He's going to be the one that they're not going to get on. And so that's a big stud. I don't know if I have another one for this series. Well, it's hard because it's actually not really the series. It's 2 games. I'll say here's a stud, and the ECF is so hard because, again, you don't really count those first 3 games. I mean, you do, but if we're gonna say a stud towards the end, and I think this one is going to be a disagree middle road, Sebastian Aho, the real Sebastian Aho, actually stood up for that last game.
That's about it.
That's about it. Unfortunately, that's about it.
That makes my Nikishin take look 10 times better if you're
to be honest with you, saving Aho for what's coming up next.
Okay.
All
right. Well, then we'll go ahead and get started with it. Talk about our duds. Go ahead, Zach. You saying Sebastian Aho?
Oh, no. I'm just saying he's probably going to be brought up in this segment. No, if I'm going dud Inskis on this one, just Barry Cook and Yemi. And there is a lot of dudes who are going to be part of this list, and KK is one of them. Just, he gets buried on the 4th line for pretty much the rest of the series, makes a very costly mistake in Game 5, which snowballs that 3-goal run in 4:20 or 4:36. Can you put it all on him? No, but he's a catalyst for an unnecessary penalty. Overall, just a very bad playoff for him, but definitely in this series, KK got abused straight up and down the ice. That was tough for KK, and it begs a lot of questions of there's, I think, 5 years left of his contract. I think maybe 6. I would not be surprised if you hear some conversation, because there's already conversations last offseason. I think now where we're at after this one, I think now it could be a totally different game. The fact that it's just, where do you go from here with him?
Yeah, it's tough when you get benched. 3 straight playoffs? I think I saw someone say by Rod at some point. So I think that's a lack of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not that Rod said something out against KK, but that's been the fans' theories, whether that's true or not. But to get benched in an ECF 3rd straight playoffs is a tough look. And to every point you mentioned, Zach, whether it's his fault or not, that penalty kind of led to
I like
that
KK
snowball of those 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, I like KK a lot, but that's a very tough look.
I'm at this weird point with KK where I feel like he does have potential. Like, if you have a typical game from KK, he's not normally a negative impact on the ice. If anything, I will maintain he is very much like a Jordan Staal type, where he just does the physical work. He's up and down the ice. He contributes, but not in like the big ways. But he's also not going to be fully a Jordan Staal contributor, because you're not giving him that ice time that Jordan Staal is getting. You're not giving him the line mates that Jordan Staal has with Martin Carrier, Stank. So he can't really do that role while you have Jordan Staal there. So if that's his role though, and then you're wanting him to do a different role, it's not going to really give you what you want. But he's also not a detriment to the team, to the point of like, yeah, he's a detriment because he's taken a spot where you could probably get someone in there with more production, but he's not typically someone that is giving away goals or having that performance like he did in this last game where he takes that unnecessary penalty. I wouldn't blame that like downfall on him, because honestly, there were some other guys during the game that were also taking crazy penalties. But it's a hard fit for him. Like he fits the locker room. He's there with the guys, but he doesn't get the trust on the ice. He doesn't have a solid spot on the ice. He is probably like he's probably your 3C, but he can't get into that 3C spot because your captain is there. So it's a hard take for him. I don't have any, like, I'm not like, get rid of him. He's doing terrible. Like there are some guys on this list that I'm like, they need to go. I'm not at that point, but I'm also like, which is not fair to him, to how he's being played or how he's getting, like, he's kind of a scapegoat at different positions during the year. So I understand. The ECF, yes, he is a dud, unfortunately.
A lot of zeros, ones, and twos in that whole in any department you really look at for him. So, and like you just see, like in the 4 games that he played, the one quick thing I'll add in here, his total ice time just started to decrease lower and lower and lower, even all the way up to yesterday. So, he didn't have more than 2 shots on goal in one game. You mentioned the penalty minutes there. He had 1 assist in this series in those 4 games. Just a lot of not a lot. There's too many zeros to look at when I look at all across the stat sheets here for him. But it was just a guy too, in my eyes, just looking at this series. I didn't even really notice him, to be honest.
No, he wasn't. That's the thing, is like, he's not normally super noticeable, but that can be a good and a bad thing. But yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to counter you now with a bigger dud. That is actually way more noticeable in a bad way. Unfortunately, one Dmitry Orlov.
No. Damn it.
Oh, we were all going to say it. We were all going to say it, because if you're going to tell me that KK's penalty started that downfall, I'm going to counter with, look at that goal where Dmitry didn't commit to his player. That player passed the puck into the seam. When you're like, well, that's Nikishin's man that scored. Well, Nikishin's not going to know because Dimitri's dropping a little bit. And so Nikishin's probably like, are you taking this guy crashing the net? Or are you taking the guy shooting the puck? What are you doing? And even I literally was yelling. I said, step to the man. And then the goal happened. And looking at, was it game 2? That was the absolute worst for Orlov. I don't know. It was one of them. I've lost track. I've blurred the badness.
3, no, 3, because Svech was game 2, or Orly was 3 in Florida.
Okay, yeah. He, like, where I'm gonna say, like, KK disappeared and didn't do anything, but he was just kind of there. Orlov was an actual detrimental. Like, he had some ups. There were times I maintain, I said at the beginning of the season, there were times where he gave point to, would you re-sign him? Now we're at the point where it's like, you better hope no other coaches watch your playoff performance, because who is going to offer you something after watching that?
Yeah. Just looking at his contract is just like horrifying in itself. And then you watched him play this series, and it's like, I don't know who's going to offer you more than like $4 million maybe this offseason. I don't know. But yeah, just like you hit the nail on the head with him. Like everything, it just seemed like everything that he touched just turned to dust. Right. And, when he just felt like he was mismarking his man. And was he on the ice last night for the Verhaeghe game-winning goal?
He was the one that Barkov undressed on.
Yes,
on
that one. Yes, I was going to bring that up.
He stole his lunch money on that one.
He did. And it's like, you have to kind of read, just looking at that play real quick, like, you have to read the size of Barkov here, the fact that he really plays his strengths down low along the boards, and he just gets undressed. And like, that was kind of the cherry on top, really, if you think about it, for the whole series. Just too many mistakes and a guy who really shouldn't be given that much time on the ice and that much responsibility, let's just say.
Producer note for Hagee game-winning goal, but also the contract, $8 million to do that. Yeah, what? That's yikes.
Listen, I just got to say, as every time if I'm gonna say a dud in Orlov, I'm gonna say, unfortunately, he wasn't really in this series, but because he wasn't in this series, you clearly don't know how bad it could have been this season if Chatfield wasn't his partner. Chatfield was doing God's work this season. And like there were times where you could still see it, but like now without Chatfield on the ice, like no fault like to the rookies, but like without Chatfield on the ice, that was honestly, it was like as bad as he played, you got to be like, okay, well, you got to think about how much his defensive partner must cover him.
Losing Shetty didn't help. I would say even losing Sean Walker didn't help, but Sean Walker had a very good playoff. Like losing him also didn't help. Like, I mean, gotta give props to Nikishin and Morrow to an extent to try to do what they did, but yeah, losing those two didn't help. And yeah, not having Chatfield on the other side of Orlov really kind of exposed a lot of them being paired together when 7 and 77 were together. And when I'm not talking about Jankowski. So Kyle, who's your dud?
Well, can't mention Orlov, so damn.
Pivot.
I am gonna pivot. Because there was another name I had in the back of my mind.
So many to choose from in this ECF.
There's a lot. I gotta throw Brent Burns out there. I don't want to, but I do. And I don't think it would surprise me if he retires this offseason. I just think, like, when you look at these back checks and when you look at Florida going on the rush here, the 2-on-1s, the 3-on-2s, like, I thought they just made him look silly a little bit and just kind of outclassed in a lot of aspects. And you can tell that, and it's only due to age, and I get it. His game declines, obviously, a little bit because you're getting older, but just the speed that Florida was able to enable on these guys, especially on Brent Burns too, like on these odd man rushes, I thought was just killing them, right? Especially early on in the first two games. So I don't want to do it, but I don't think he looked that fantastic. And like, even when they stuck him on the power play, it felt almost uncomfortable watching him out there on the power play sometimes.
It's hard. So the highlights of him on the power play, it's honestly, it just highlights more why he shouldn't be out there because of the way Ghost runs his. Not saying it was like the shots need to happen, but the way Ghost moves, the way Ghost lays it all out, he's constantly, and like more times than none, it's leaving the zone because Burns can't get to the puck. I don't know about retiring. This season was his big decline for us. I don't know about retiring because like, I think he still has some hockey to give. We saw how if Ovechkin is still playing, Burns can easily still play because Burns was killing Ovechkin. But he can't have top line minutes. And I don't know if there's room for that on the Canes team still with what we have coming up. He just can't be your top line. He can't be the first line guy anymore. And especially if you have guys like Nikishin, or you guys have Morrow, or you have even moving up Walker, any of them, like you need to give the top line with Slavin, you need to give him more to work with because you're almost hindering Slavin more than you need to. He's used to covering for his offensive partners, but it's almost a disservice to your like best defenseman to kind of anchor him with that. Burns had a hit or miss playoffs, the ECF. I don't think good for Orlov and, dethroning him is the worst. But I think of the defensemen we had out there, he didn't help with anything. Like I'd say you'd go Slavin as your number one, Ghost, then Walker, and then it just slowly goes down from there. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, I would more so put Burns maybe in the middle, but towards the bottom middle, not top middle, if that makes sense. Kind of like that lukewarm.
Dud-ish.
Yeah,
He's been more dud. He wasn't actually the most dud.
yeah. I would say he's that, yeah, like you said, that small dud where it's like kind of like it's not the worst, but it's like you can't put. He's more lower on that end more than the top end. But
Yeah.
he got better I think he was all right in game 4 and game 5, but yeah, other than that,
I do have one more dud. I think Kyle said he has to go here shortly.
don't forget the intern. The intern's got to have his.
Yes, I know. Do you have your dud, Richie?
Plural, but I will let Kyle go
Yes.
before I run through those because there's a few, but we appreciate you jumping on, Kyle.
Thanks,
Thank
boss
you.
man.
Thank you
Thanks
for letting me
for
jump on.
sharing in our sadness.
It's okay. We'll all be in our sadness together soon. Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's Kyle.
It's Kyle.
It's Kyle.
Talk to you guys later. See ya.
Bye.
All right, appreciate it.
So yeah, plural. This is maybe a bit of a lukewarm one, but Jackson Blake. Really, the entire playoffs, JB looked like a rookie. I think the physicality got to him. So in the offseason, spending time with Billy, personal trainer, to get that going. But he looked completely different compared to how he did in the regular season. That was tough to watch. As JB's probably number one fan, I'd argue, he did not have a good playoffs. He did not have a good ECF. It was like anytime he got the puck, he had to take it from snatching candy from a baby. Like, respectfully to JB when I say that, but it was hard to watch because, like how the Canes outperformed this season their expectations, Jackson Blake outperformed his expectations this season as well. So I feel like I'm almost guilty of putting too much pressure on him, where he got first line minutes. I'm like, oh, maybe he'll perform like a first liner in the playoffs. That was not the case. So for me, Jackson Blake, probably in the Brent Burns category, like we just discussed.
You have to remember with Blake, so he's a rookie clearly. But if you take away for a second, you're like, wow, like this kid is playing not so great hockey in playoffs. You have to remember Seth Jarvis's first his first time as a rookie. He also wasn't the Seth Jarvis we know now. He bulked up over season. He knows how to lay the body. That's just experience. And if you're like, well, also look at Stank. Stank also has more playoff experience than Blake. So even like you're like, okay, well, you have your smaller guys. The experience is what it is. So now Blake has the experience under him. He's gonna get some more reps. So I'm gonna say it's not for lack of trying. It's just for lack of inexperience. Like it's lack of experience for him. It's inexperience all around. So yeah, did he raise expectations in the regular season? Yes, but he was never the big guy anyway. So I'm not going to fully, like you said, like he's kind of middle road. If anything, I wouldn't even fully put him as a dud because I'm going to say he's just a rookie. Like all the expectations should not be on him. It should be on some of these other guys, some of the veterans that we just said that were duds. Your thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, it's lukewarm for Blake. I mean, he tried it. He's a rookie. Just it's gonna come with experience. Really about it.
Which super fast. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
To Rod's point too, he said this shouldn't be on the rookies. I forgot after what game it was. Yeah, that's a great point.
4 and 5.
Yeah, so for them, and I think he was more talking, obviously, Stankoven and Nikishin than Blake, but nonetheless, that kind of tells you just how the series went when your head coach is saying, we need people to step up.
Yeah, so game 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said you had plural, Rich. What's your other one?
Yeah, another.
Yeah, Andrei Svechnikov went back to regular season Svech in the ECF. He was hot. I'd said it in the preview video clip that I made of like, your stars are scoring. And I'm getting crucified for it because they didn't really score in the series. And Svech was one of them because he was doing so well in the New Jersey series, great in the Washington series. And the Svech we got in the regular season where he's just underperforming came about again. And you need you like when he is the Svetch we all asked for, that power forward, like it's outstanding. But time and time again, he underwhelms. He disappears for a bit. And I just want to see a consistent Andrei Svechnikov.
It's interesting. I feel like we got that playoff Svetch. Honestly, we got playoff Svetch more consistently than we got Aho in these playoffs. I think it's a little bit with Svetch. I think this team, as well as he was doing with the other teams, as well as he was like staying in check, staying calm, collected, all of that. I think the Panthers get in his head a little bit. I think they get in his head a little bit, and his whole line when Jarvis was off, and then you have Aho's who's just like kind of hit or miss. Like, yeah, he showed up, like you said earlier, he showed up in game 5, and that was a stud Aho, but do we have him all the time? Not this season. So it's a little harder ask. So yeah, he's a middle of the road for me because he did have such a good playoff period before this. And did he play well this series? No. Again, not really. Did anyone? No. I think Florida just has our number and is in our head a little bit. But yeah, I can understand that. But that was it's hard because some of these duds are like they're all duds. Like they were all duds all at the same time. Do you have another one? I'm sorry, you also said plural. So do you have another one?
Well, I'll let you go because I feel like we probably have the same one here. A veteran player.
It's a veteran player, and it was on like it wasn't for lack of trying, but as well as he's been doing with this team, Taylor Hall did not play well against the Florida Panthers. He did not. I think they definitely got in his head. He was there barking with them, chirping with them. That's great. But he was trying to do too much by himself. He was losing it in the neutral zone. His skill was getting bodied a little bit more. And it's similar to Blake, honestly, a little similar to Blake. I think you could see Blake growing up to be a little bit like Taylor Hall, where he's a very skilled player, weaving in and out, maybe not the biggest on the ice, but is a playmaker. I can see that. And both of their games were kind of canceled out by the Florida Panthers, just with how big they are, with how aggressive they are, physical they are. I think the same thing happened to Taylor Hall. Instead of a rookie, it was the veteran kind of getting very off his game and just honestly didn't have a good series at all.
Yeah, I mean, I would go more lukewarm on Taylor Hall. It's just one of those things where, yeah, I think he was doing a little bit too much, but it wasn't a detriment to a team where it's dud status. It's kind of like, kind of in the middle. It's like, that's all right. I mean, he could have played better, yeah, but he wasn't someone who just threw away sequences and stuff like that. So I say he's more middle of the road for me.
Yeah, and I put him there just because, not that the moment was too big for him, but just that he had never been in that moment before. So I'm sure with the way the Panthers talk to their opponent, I'm sure that got in his head a little bit. It was a little tough to see because, again, I think most of these guys, you just wanted more, and you can get more out of them, and we just did not get it in this series.
Yeah. Well, this has been a super downer part of the episode. I will say, if I'm going to give applause, that game 4 was an all-around team effort. That was Carolina hockey that we all expected, that we all wanted. That was what we wanted this whole series to be. I would give all of the guys credit in that game because that was just an absolute clinic. We talk about how well Slavin did. We talk about Anderson. I'll talk about all of them. Even the guys that we just said were duds. Game 4, much better. Like they did. It was just, that was the team we wanted. That was the team we needed. Did we get it for all the ECF games? No. So there's more duds than there are studs, unfortunately. But talking about the Carolina Hurricanes, we do have some guys going into UFAs next season. And some of those guys kind of ended up on our duds list So we got to talk about those a little bit. So we're thinking if they're going to return or not is kind of what we're going to be judging right now. And I'll go ahead and start with Brent Burns, and I'll get Zach's thoughts and then the paid interns. Thoughts on Brent Burns?
No.
Gone. Easiest gone.
I don't, like I said earlier, I don't know if he's going to be retiring, but I don't know if there's a spot on this defensive line for him anymore, especially not on the top unit. So I also say gone. Next one, Dmitry Orlov.
No. Just it's even if it's shorter money, unless Chag's with them. No.
Yeah, gone. I don't know if it's like Morrow to fill his spot as well as Nikishin, because you obviously have those two filling in for the folks we just listed. But based on what we saw this playoffs, and you talked about a cat, Jalen Chatfield covered for him way more than people recognized. So gone.
Yeah, we were really fortunate to get, so with Shea and Pesci leaving, we were really fortunate. The Walker and Ghost pair is actually like, that's fantastic. I love having both those guys. Orlov, again, was making a case during the season at a time where I was like, maybe you keep him. And even a little bit in the playoffs, where I was like, maybe you keep him to help Nikishin feel more comfortable on that line. But too much of a detriment, too much hot and cold play, a lot more cold than hot. I also agree with you too. Next one, a little interesting. Jack Roslovic.
Appreciate Rosie for what he did, but with where the roster is kind of set up now, where there's going to be very limited spots to crack in with all the cap space and the upgrades you need to make, Rosie is going somewhere else.
Agreed for every reason. You're going to be able to bring guys in. You have Bradley Nadeau in the wings. Jenk is still around for an extra season on that fourth line. So Rosie gone as well.
Agreed. He started very hot. He had moments this season, but it wasn't like he got really hot, but that wasn't usual for him. And that kind of he went back to normal. And again, with the cap space you have, with the guys you have waiting to play more, I definitely see that it's probably not going to be him sticking around. So I agree. Curious if you guys agree with me on this next one. Eric Robinson
stays extra forward. I've already penciled him in as an extra, as a 13th forward on this team. He's had a career season. I would love to have him stay just as backup.
I'm saying gone as well.
I said stay.
Yeah, he, based on what I saw after Nate just left, just didn't give me the juices that I needed for him. I'm sure there's a few Robbies out there, respectfully to Robbie in free agency, you may add. But yeah, don't see him staying either.
I think, yeah. So I think the intern said as well, because he knew my answer was also going to be, I could see him leaving. Once he had connection with Natchez, but then he got demoted down in the lineup and he just really hasn't done a lot. He kind of is a little bit like KK. Like he really wasn't he wasn't a detriment, but he wasn't a positive. There were so many times in this playoffs where he had a breakaway or he had the chance to take it and do something with it, and nothing happened from it, to the point where I said, if it was anyone but Robinson, we might have gotten something out of that. I could see him being an extra. And again, at the beginning of the season, very different answer, kind of like Jack Roslovic. But again, with that money you have to spend, maybe you look somewhere else. Next one, Tyson Jost.
No, he's going.
I think he will come back. I think he's going to spend a lot of time in Chicago, but I think just for the fire he brings, he'll get another year.
I agree with the intern. Sorry, Zach. I'm agreeing just because I think his fight and he makes himself very known when he's on the ice, even if he has limited minutes. If Jack and Eric are gone, I could see Jost getting a little bit more break into the roster, but I don't think he's like, I agree. He probably might be back down with Chicago quite a bit, but I think I don't know. I feel like he just brings a little more fire to the lineup than the other two, and that's kind of what the Canes need. And then fun. Yes, very Kotkaniemi.
Let the intern go first on this one.
Sorry, Seth Jarvis, your bestie is gone. We'll talk about it more in our offseason predictions show, but ship him out of here. He's had his chances. It just has not worked out for what the upside can be. And the way Rod feels about him probably isn't great. I'm completely speculating on that. I do not see a world where KK comes back. I think Tulski uses him in a trade.
Yeah, same. Trade piece.
I don't know what you would get. It has to be a really good deal, and you have to get something helpful back. So I'm a little undecided on him. Just like I said earlier, I think there can be upside to him, but I think he needs an actual solid spot in the roster. And unfortunately, the spot he would occupy is taken, and it's taken for a little bit longer now. I don't know if you can afford to keep him down on the fourth, but I'm not opposed. I mean, with how well Jankowski's playing, moving him up, but he's also more of a fourth too. So it really depends how we fill that 2C spot. So I think that's really up in the air, is how we fill that spot, because you can't fill it with, I don't know. I'm up in the air. We'll talk more about this in later episodes as we go on. I'm still just
I'll say this, Kat, you can't have 3 bottom 6 guys be your spine of your centers.
I know.
You need a bona fide 2.
I know. We haven't had one in a while.
Vincent,
I can't wait.
Vincent Trocheck. That would be great to keep that guy around, but
yeah, but
no,
he wanted
I got my guy.
so much time, and he wanted so much money. It's unfortunate.
I have someone coming from the east to save the day in our mock off season, which who knows if Tulski will pull the trigger, but no one thought he pulled the trigger on Mikko. So to quote Kevin Garnett, anything is possible.
And maybe Mikko scarred us that we might not fully do that again. You never know. Anyway, speaking of, we're wrapping up the episode, but I was told to save this to the end, and I'm ready to let loose. All right. So when we are recording this, the Stanley Cup is set. It's going to be a rematch of Edmonton and Florida. I need people to understand. Yes, Canes fans, listen, I understand the ups and downs, our expectations, the feelings, all of this. I need people to be just as freaking upset with the Dallas Stars. If you look at them, first of all, this Western Conference final, if you talk about a poor showing by the Carolina Hurricanes, can we talk about the Stars and the Oilers, please? Because you can't even be like, well, we got shut out, we got scored, all of this stuff. If you look at the last couple of games for them, they were down. They won that first game. They squeaked by on that first game, but then they went on to lose 3-0, 6-1, 4-1, 6-3. They just got trumped just like we did. They just lost in game 5. They are the same story as us, and you can't even be like, well, they made it. At least they made it to the conference finals, where it doesn't matter if you don't win the cup. That's what everyone tells us all the time as Canes fans. It doesn't matter if you don't win the cup. So don't come at me about their conference finals appearances, because it's the same as us in the playoff appearances. If not, they have missed the playoffs in the years that we have made it. And also, I really want you guys to go look at how it is set up. Someone showed a side-by-side example of how it is set up for the Canes going forward versus Dallas going forward. The picks and the longevity we have with our team versus what Dallas has is insane. we're set up so much better. They cash it all in and they fall just like we do. But no one's talking about it because everyone likes to yell at the Canes. My co-hosts have muted because they know I've been going on this tirade because I was waiting for the Oilers to win to just feel so freaking justified. But as Canes fans, I really do encourage you. Like, I know you're like, gosh, we really can't get over this stuff. We can't push here, all this stuff. Look at the Western Conference. There are teams that are doing the exact same thing. You just don't hear about it as much because everyone loves to hate on us. Okay. I could keep going. I also love, we have Logan Stankoven, who has done so much more. Rantanen disappeared again. Logan Stankoven was a stud and showed up in all of these games. And they have been talking about, oh, look, Rantanen disappeared again. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the SurgeCast. We ended on a much different note than we started. But overall, yes. Are we sad? Are we in our morning of, oh, no, I can't watch hockey anymore unless I watch two teams that I don't really care that much about? Yes. Are we in our, oh, no, what's the offseason going to look like? It's not the same feeling as it was last offseason, but it's still that like, oh, no, what are we going to do? Yes. But there's lots of positives. We've got guys that are like a young core on our team. The window isn't closing. Most of our guys are under 30. That's great. And most of our guys are even like under 25. And for like long term, fantastic. We've got guys coming up through like the intern said earlier, Bradley Nadeau. There are so many positives with this team coming forward. Yes, are we sad right now? Yes. Anytime hockey ends sooner than you want it to, you're sad. So we talked about that a little bit in the episode, but I encourage you guys, look at the positives, get ready for next season, be ready to cheer on your team. I love that we ended with, even though they lost, Lenovo was still chanting, let's go Canes, even while they were in the handshake line, because we are going to cheer on these boys no matter what. So for your wonderful team at the SurgeCast, can I get one more let's go Canes, guys?
Let's go, Canes.
Let's go, Canes. All right. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see you on our next episode next time on the SurgeCast.